Flat Earth, Banjo, USA, Japan and Brazil. All flights prove Earth to be flat and stationary. How is this possible? Runways can face any direction, and the plane lands perfectly nearly all the time. Because the airport is moving at 1600 kilometers in another direction. An airplane can only land safely on a runway that is not moving. Let's consider a flight from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, to Quito in Ecuador. The airplane's orientation is towards the northwest. Remember that Earth is supposedly rotating from west to east at 1,600 kilometers or 1,040 miles. The airplane's orientation and motion are along its landing path, and the runway is moving at a different angle and different speed. It would be impossible for the plane to land in one piece. A flight from Africa to Australia takes on average 12 hours. So the plane then would have to fly around the world completely. People on board will experience a day and a night, landing early the next morning, all during a 12 hours period. The Earth will do a half rotation in that 12 hours. But a plane leaving Africa early morning will arrive in Australia late sunset 12 hours later. So the Earth cannot be spinning. A plane flying north to south flies the same speed and distance as a plane flying east to west, and vice versa. This can only be like this if the Earth is not moving. So, if you say the air and plane are moving with the Earth, let's have a look. Consider a flight from Perth, in Australia, to Beijing in China. The flight takes 12 hours. At the same time, the Earth is rotating from west to east at a speed of 1,040 miles per hour. Remember, according to heliocentric beliefs, the atmosphere is velcroed with the Earth. According to this belief, as the plane flies forward, it is pushed sideways due to the rotation of the Earth. The average ground speed of this aircraft is 550 miles per hour. The rotation of Earth is 1,040 miles per hour. The conclusion is, the aircraft goes faster sideways. Just compare the top to the bottom animation. See how fast the plane at the bottom has to go sideways to arrive at the same time as the plane on the top animation. Now the same for planes flying in a westerly direction. These planes are moving with the air and Earth. This illustration tells us the Earth is not spinning. This plane is moving with the Earth going northeast. Watch the blue arrow. This is how the plane's orientation would have to change continually to land at the same angle of the runway. The plane would have to change its orientation mid-air. So as the plane turns, its motion will change from forward to backward while traveling at the same speed. The plane won't be able to fly if the air is coming from the back of the plane. A plane circling an airport and flying with the Earth's rotation would still have to fly faster east and then slow down when going west, all the while changing its orientation. Imagine the fear of the passengers on board. The Earth is not moving. When you are on a plane looking out the window, you only see your motion with the plane. If the plane was moving with the Earth's rotation, you would still see the Earth's movement under you. This is footage from a flight from Tokyo to Singapore. You can see how all is calm and still under the person who is filming it. Earth is at rest while the plane is on its route to Singapore. The horizon always rises to the eye level of the viewer, but on a globe, the horizon would drop. Always. No matter how big the sphere is assumed to be, the horizon always falls from eye level. Which illustration corresponds to the reality we can always observe. You only observe your motion, and the Earth's motion angle will be different and you would see this. There's no observable Earth motion. Let's now consider west to east and east to west flights. Let's look at a flight from Sao Paulo to Rio and the return flight from Rio to Sao Paulo. The flight from Sao Paulo to Rio takes 38 minutes. The flight from Rio to Sao Paulo takes longer. It takes 49 minutes. How can this be if Earth is rotating from west to east and the airplane is flying from east to west? In this illustration, A is Sao Paulo and B is Rio, considering the Earth is rotating from west to east. The plane going east will travel further than the plane going west. Even if the atmosphere and obedient clouds were moving with the Earth, this will not affect the plane's traveling distance at all. So why is the plane flying towards the west, against the spin of the Earth, takes longer than the plane flying east? The reason is that Earth is not rotating. The plane flying towards the west battles westerly winds, and that causes the flight time to be longer. Plane flights to the opposite ends of the Earth will travel at the same speed, the same distance over the same time period. If the Earth is spinning, the plane traveling with the spin will have to travel a faster and longer distance than the plane going against the spin. If we attach the Earth's spin and atmosphere to the planes, the displacement will not be the same for both planes. Let's take as an example a plane flight between Los Angeles and Tokyo, westbound and eastbound. The flight distance is 8,804 kilometers, or 5,470 miles. Eastbound and westbound flights are always the same flight distance. This is only possible if Earth is stationary with the Sun orbiting around the Earth. In this illustration, 1 second represents 1 hour. All animations are 360-degree rotation in a 24-second cycle. If a plane leaves Los Angeles at 12 o'clock noon, which is a typical departure time, it will arrive in Tokyo Narita about 10 hours later, at 4 p.m. local time. It will be daylight the entire flight. Flight distance, 8,804 kilometers or 5,470 miles. Plane average speed, 880 kilometers per hour or 540 miles per hour. Arrival at 4 p.m. local time. Flight duration, 10 hours. Return flight. Narita to Los Angeles usually departs in the late afternoon. Leaving Narita at 4 p.m., you will land at Los Angeles the following morning at about 8 a.m. It would get dark very quickly after takeoff. Airplane flies against the movement of the sun. Flight distance, 8,804 kilometers or 5,470 miles. Plane average speed, 880 kilometers per hour or 540 miles per hour. Arrival time, 8 a.m. local time. Flight duration, 10 hours. East and west flights are always the same distance. This can only be so if the Earth is stationary. If the Earth was rotating east for the flight to Japan to take 10 hours, the plane would have to fly backwards. If the Earth was rotating east, return flight from Japan to Los Angeles. Flight distance, 24,000 kilometers or 14,912 miles. Plane speed, 2,400 kilometers per hour or 1,490 miles per hour. Arrival time at 4 p.m. Flight duration, 10 hours. This is impossible for a passenger plane. Let's look at a flight east from Dulles, USA to Madrid, Spain, with the Earth being stationary, as it truly is. A flight departs Washington, D.C. towards Madrid in Spain. Flight hours, 7 hours. Distance: 6,134 kilometers or 3,811 miles. Assuming 7 hours of flying time, you'd be landing at 7 p.m. local time in Madrid. Almost all US-Europe flights depart for the US in the evening and arrive in the morning. The return flight departs at 12 noon midday, arrives at Dulles at 2 p.m. Distance and time match perfectly with reality when the Earth is stationary. If the Earth was spinning, the return flight would be 2,500 kilometers or 1,553 miles, and take 3 hours. A commercial aircraft typically flies between 31,000 feet to 38,000 feet, between 6 to 8 miles. Only on a flat, non-rotating Earth can an airplane fly for 8,000 miles straight level. Neither a pilot, gravity, or the atmosphere adjusts the plane for curvature, because curvature doesn't exist. Some people claim the autopilot automatically adjusts for curvature, which it doesn't seem to be the case. The autopilot makes corrections due to the weather pattern, convergent and divergent winds as well as westerly and easterly wind currents. The altimeter will demonstrate whether the pilot is flying too high. This does not have anything to do with the supposed curvature of the Earth. Pilots make mistakes and the altimeter is there to prevent pilots from making the mistake of flying the aircraft too high. The incident of Air France Flight 447 was proved to be the pilot's mistake. The pilot ascended the aircraft too much to avoid a storm over the Atlantic Ocean, and it caused the plane to stall, and it belly crashed over the Atlantic Ocean.
Stalled. 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 Stalled.
Many people trust pilots as the ultimate authority on the shape of the Earth. But is this really the case? Pilots are not even required to have a college degree, much less a degree in the field of sciences.
Do you have to have a 4-year degree to become a pilot? No, you don't.
Do I need to have a degree to become a pilot? You don't.
First off, do you actually need a degree to become an airline pilot? No, you don't.
Having just a license for flying, many pilots have been facing harsh difficulties as salaries have been cut and things have become tough for some of them.
I'm gonna make 5.5 hours times $38 an hour. Not a lot of money.
An ABC News report recently captured pilots sleeping in airport lounges rather than spending some of their earnings on hotels.
Incidents of pilot rage are on the increase, as some of these examples.
Chicago cruise. 11 out of 12. There's 12 flight attendants, individual, never the same flight attendant twice. 11 fucking over-the-top fucking ass fucking homosexuals and a granny. 11. I mean, think of the odds of that. I thought I was in Chicago, which was party land. After that, it was just a continuous stream of gays and grannies and grandes. Well, I don't give a fuck. I hate 100% of their asses. So,
since pilots are not required to have a degree in science, many of them fail in understanding the nature of the world we live in. Fields like hydrology, which states water in large quantities, will always remain level and flat. Or oceanography, which states that 51% of all ocean's floor is flat due to the abyssal plains. Fields of science like seismology, geography, and others will confirm that Earth is not a spinning ball in space. The Earth does not spin. We live on a flat, stationary Earth. Large bodies of water, when at rest, will always maintain the level. How is it that ancient sea travelers used a flat map and a flat compass to navigate on a ball Earth? As the measurements when applied to a ball Earth, the distances would be incorrect. The ancient Chinese were more advanced in understanding the sun, moon, and the stars, and almost all other sciences at that time compared to the Western world. So why did they use this as a symbol for the sun and moon, night and day? The Chinese were portrayed as stupid and as a source of cheap labor by the Jesuits, so they used opium to destroy their culture. Why do you think that was? From the start, you have been trained and not educated. It's time to let go of this indoctrination. Earth is not a spinning ball in space. All the evidences point to a flat, non-rotating Earth. Science is not settled. We have just scratched its surface.